There are a lot of ways you can include language and linguistics in the world building of your story without needing to actually write the entire language. Now, if you want to write a conlang, a constructed language, you're welcome to, and that's something that Tolkien did very successfully. However, it can be complicated and take a long time, and it's a project you never really finish. I'm going to have another video where I do a deep dive on that. However, I want to say you don't need to write the whole language in order to use a language successfully in your book. I'd like to introduce the idea of the hollow iceberg. This is something talked about a lot in world building. It was introduced to me by Brandon Sanderson. Picture an iceberg, with part of it above the water being the world building that the reader sees, and the rest of it being underwater. Sometimes us authors feel like we need to have that entire iceberg filled out, even if the reader isn't going to see most of it. The truth is, most of the time we don't have the time to do this, and so we're going to want to have the part of the iceberg that's beneath the water be hollow. Hence the hollow iceberg. We want to have a really filled out piece of the world that our readers and characters interact with and see, and then the rest of it that the readers don't see, we need to give an impression of. Give an impression that it exists, but it doesn't actually need to be thought out in our heads. Language is a great aspect of your world building to have a hollow iceberg for, because it gives your world immediate depth and you're able to add some cultural diversity both to the world itself and to the characters. First thing you want to think about is the purpose of your language. Who's using it, what races are using it, and how are they using it to interact with each other. Most books have some sort of common tongue that all of the characters basically speak to make it easier on your readers. This is needed for most stories, as most readers don't want to have to take the time to actually learn a different language to read a book. Therefore, common tongues are necessary. However, if you have characters or places that are named something in a different language, it'll give the impression of a culture and a history and some lore there that the reader doesn't need to know about, but will appreciate experiencing and knowing that it does exist in your world somewhere off screen. Picture in Lord of the Rings how Tolkien named Minas Tirith and Minas Morgul. They're both these cities, and we know that Minas must mean something in a different language, although we don't really know. They see, oh, Minas Tirith, Minas Morgul, these are both named something in a different language. Minas must be a word in that language. And they move on, and if they're interested, they learn about it, and if they're not, then they still understand that there is some depth there to the world. This is something I like doing. When I want to go to a new place in my book that's lived in by people that speak a different language, instead of feeling intimidated by the need to write an entire language for that people, I instead just think of 20 vocabulary words. Words like big, small, green, silver, different colors, white, black, evil, good, faithful, those kinds of things. And then I name the places in that region, variations of those words, derivations of those words, the people too, right? If one person's name in the other language is Bigfoot and another is Littlefoot, you'll see those similarities, and yet they're different enough to be their own names. And the readers and characters get to interact with these things as they meet new people, as they go to new places, without there ever being a tour guide info dump saying, this place speaks this language and they all have cool names that mean cool things. You get to skip all of that and immediately start interacting with the world and the people and the languages themselves without even needing to write the language. So that's what I suggest to you. If you would like to integrate some language into your book, think of 20 to 30 vocabulary words you would like to use in the naming of places, and then use different versions and derivations and conjugations of those words to name mountains and cities and fields and weapons in that region, and have those be introduced to your characters through other characters of that region. And then do the same thing for some of the people that live there. Have their names be things like Bigfoot or Littlefoot or Strong Sword or Long Bow or those kinds of things in the other language. And again, only think of 10 to 20 vocabulary words for that, which doesn't need to be very difficult. Think of what you want it to sound like. Think of some of the phonetics and consonant groupings and vowels you want to use for that. Keep that pretty consistent throughout the vocabulary you choose. You know, you don't want to have one word that's like Sarsaranamor and another one that's like Guk. You know, those sound like they're from different languages. So choose a sound system that makes sense to you and keep it consistent, and then create 20 words. You can use different word generators online as well if you would like to. And then that can be a hollow iceberg for that region of your book. Something else I'd like to do is when I have two characters that are from different places and may speak different languages, although they're interacting with the common tongue, sometimes they might throw in words from their own language. If they forget something in the common tongue, they're like, oh, what do you call this thing, it's a shakraman or whatever, and it's like, oh, they forgot how to say sword or whatever, and you can say that in their language. Or also, I like doing insults. It's an easy one to do if two characters are arguing. It's easy to insult someone in your own language. So coming up with a couple insults, and you can have them mean nothing or come up with meanings for them, but it'll add this depth to the character and their backstory and where they came from immediately. Again, with only needing to come up with a couple of words for that kind of stuff. So there you have it, some simple ways of integrating linguistics into the world building of your book without actually needing to write the entire Conlang. Just think of 20 to 30 words with similar phonetics, a sound system that makes sense and is consistent, and then use those or variations of those to name places and people from that region, and have people from that region be using those kinds of words occasionally in the vocabulary as insults or as they forget other things or as battle cries. I hope that was helpful. I am going to make another video where I do a deep dive on conlangs and kind of get the basics of where to begin with that, but for now, just know you don't need to write an entire language in order to include it in your book and have it be helpful and have it be cool. Have fun writing languages in your books, and I'll see you in my next video.